moving right along, let's talk about some of the characters in the book. Let's see. I need to ask you, before I ask you about Cocksure Dick.
Yep.
How did you get these names?
Okay. So
For example, Cocksure Dick.
Yeah.
I know you go by the alphabet,
Right.
which I think is very creative. How did you come up with that name?
So the first one that you selected was the inspiration around forming the book.
Oh.
I was actually in a previous business, had a consultant come in that provided, really C-level consulting services. So we actually entertained and had a gentleman in, and he was very boisterous and very authoritative during the meeting. Very animated, standing up and really invoking a sense of like power and confidence. And so it was a very dramatic pitch that we were given, and I was there with some of my partners and another gentleman that was involved in vetting this this consultant. And when the consultant left, we walked out, exchanged pleasantries, and went on his way. And we came back to a conference room, and my partners turned to me and they said, "Well, what do you think of of this gentleman?" And I said, "Well, he seemed pretty cocksure to me." It was a word that I knew, and that's not very common, but I really thought it accurately defined that character. We're often left with, giving a summary of a certain personality trait, and you have to, describe it in 15 different words, and he's arrogant, I didn't like how he was doing this and that, but that word really kind of encapsulated a lot of what that experience was. And it was really funny because my partners hadn't really heard that word. It's not a common word used.
Never heard of it too.
Or they think it's made up word.
Yeah, and I've got kind of a off-the-wall kind of sense of humor, so they thought I was purely just making up a word. So they jumped on. We had the computer set up to a TV screen in our conference room, and they typed in the word, and looked it up online, and sure enough, it's a word. So it really became kind of this funny experience, but it really was, when you read the definition, it really was the experience to a T. So that, Cocksure Dick became a bit of the inspiration, and then we said, how do we do something different that's not just a lot of books that label personality traits in the workplace, give it more of a non-real description. So they'll say the Avenger is someone that comes after, if you take their business away from them, they'll come back and really try to stick it to you. So they give sort of, more of a fictitious, made-up name. And we thought, why don't we bring back, and use a little, bit of, wit and creativity, and make it educational in the same sense, which is take, what we've really rooted out of our language, a lot of those, unique adjectives that really point to an actual character trait that was defined. We've just continued to, really, I guess, dumb down our vocabulary. And it's really funny when you share the book and the characters with different people. There's a larger audience that's really familiar with a lot of the words, and they're people with great vocabularies and avid readers.
Yes.
But in a large part, a lot of these words aren't there. So
Definitely not common, that's for sure.
Yeah, and probably, and again, it's not written in a text way or a Facebook way.
Right.
Maybe now.
Right.
Maybe you may see this in the future as a text message. Maybe they'll shorten it a little bit. Well, I definitely like the picture that you have here. And I know, like I said, I know people said, "Oh my God, it's somebody you definitely want to punch."
Yeah. And
I know that's not politically correct to say in the air, but
yeah. And a lot of, even
okay.
even the format, when we were creating it, I'd have to look back to Pia and say, what are we actually doing? Because
yeah, we did that a lot.
it's authors, yes, it is a book, but its format is very much, free flowing, and we went through a number of different, styles. We had a more explicit format to it, and we wanted to tone it down so it would appeal to a wider audience. We had it
More visual one.
yeah, more visual, more tied to exact, more tying it to exact events or behaviors, that kind of looked more like a Facebook type of profile. But we wanted to take something, like really unique and creative. And I think when you look at the format of each character, it talks about like the first impression and the last impression.
It's how we think.
Right.
It's the thought process that we
Right,
go
that's
through
right.
when we meet someone for the first time, and then how we feel about them when we walk away, like Matt was saying in his meeting. And then, bullet points that kind of target that guy
Right.
or that girl.
And the interesting part is with the first impression, last impression, in what you see there is there's something there in a first impression that we all kind of sense and feel. And usually our gut, in a large part, is right, about a certain personality or a certain trait. And we do this amazing thing, which is sometimes we convince ourselves it's not really there,
Right,
or we want to
right.
believe someone's, better than that.
Try to give the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of that becomes that first impression, and then really what that lasting impression is as you start to work and interact with that person, and really your first impression was really spot on, and you just didn't fall through on it. And I think that stems from a lot of business experiences that we've had that we get involved in, where within sales or marketing or running an operation of a business, you run into so many different personalities. You want to really try to see people in the best light, but sometimes those character traits are really pretty overpowering. And then, transitioning out of that, we try to give, some funny, quirky stories about what that person might be like in their personal life, or funny things they do around the office, and then give some lighthearted and also some really constructive criticism, because we all know people that struggle in the workplace with the people they work with, and they don't really have like a, how do I deal with it, the difficult boss,
Right.
or how do I deal with someone who's really condescending. There can be strategies that are to deal with them, and I think a lot of this is as more people read it, it also helps them like take things into perspective, which is, this person really shouldn't be controlling the way I feel, because a lot of people take that work stress home, so it could be a nice way of, getting a good laugh and maybe finding some constructive,
Lighthearted relief.
yeah,
Well, like a lot of the characters you describe here, like office bullies.
right.
And that's a whole big thing now about bullying in the workplace. That's a whole other issue. I have to say that this is very interesting, and maybe in the future you'll have like a stress ball with Cocksure Dick's face on it. I can guarantee that would be good, or a Bobo doll.
Yeah.
Maybe a basketball.
Yeah.
Something you can throw or squeeze is what you're saying.
Yes, yes. Okay, well, we got it. Did you have any comment about this character?
That character really fits a lot of the people I dealt with.
Yeah.
And coming from, working many years ago, you just had to deal with them.
You dealt with them, but go, "Ugh,
Yeah.
do I have to?" When they'd call up and say, "Someone's coming down." Oh, no.
The next one I picked out was Feckless Fred. Feckless. I never heard of the word. Have you, Dawn?
No,
Where'd you
never.
get that word from?
Well, the adjectives that we chose for the book were definitely the hardest
I can
part of it.
imagine. Yes.
They weren't easy to find, even though some people, like Matt said, a lot of people have heard of some of them, but in our case, we heard of probably maybe half of them, but we didn't really know the definition. We could probably guess at it, but that was about it. So yeah, that was just one of the many.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time. When you're choosing to do a book A through Z, you can imagine certain letters like Z and X are very difficult to find words that are unique. So, we wanted to have, a word that also, was kind of a word you wanted to learn about. Feckless.
Fun to say,
or
too.
mendacious, like lascivious. Like, those are just like a word that you could see people using. So there were a lot of like clinical, type of words.
That's great. Phobias and
Yeah.
all those.
And we didn't want to really go to that length. We wanted to really take into words that we could see incorporated into, people's vocabulary. So.